We have scores, we have controversy, we have picks. All next on Sports Bar. Hello, I'm David Jackson. Welcome into the Sports Bar here as we've got the full crew once again. Plenty of controversial topics to talk about here, as well as another week in the NFL, another week in college football, another Appalachian State win.
Yeah.
I think we could probably start there first. Kind of seems like same old story, same old song and dance, but the Mountaineers with another great hot start and lead that to a Sun Belt Conference win. Great to get the league started off on a nice note down at Georgia State this weekend.
Yeah, funny enough, it didn't feel a lot like a Sun Belt Conference win. I think on the second or third touchdown, all of a sudden I was kind of like, I see where this game is going.
Yeah.
I like where it's going. I hope we continue to do it, but at the same time, it was not, once again, not the most exciting game we could have hoped for, but it is nice to see our guys going out there and playing really well week after week and showing that they know how to do what they're doing.
I mean, if you like solid defense, it was a great game. I mean, we got our third defensive touchdown in 3 weeks. That's pretty intriguing. You don't really get to see that a lot. Latrell Gibbs kept the streak alive at 5 games. I'm wondering when that eventually, I mean, you would think it has to stop at some point, but I mean, he keeps
It'll
doing it.
stop when they quit throwing the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will say his interception wasn't necessarily a throw straight to him this time.
Right.
But at the same time, he's just, I mean, it's field awareness. He's in the right spot. So.
Yeah, he's got an amazing ability to know where the ball is going to be and how to get himself there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Appalachian took care of business this week. I was a little, I guess, underwhelmed by our offense. I thought at times, we could have finished a drive with a touchdown or, we stalled. And I was kind of thinking to myself, we are kind of playing Georgia State. I'd kind of like to put 60 on these guys if we could, just for practice sake or whatever. But certainly the defense played well. You mentioned Gibbs. And, like you say, that was just kind of a fluke play.
Yeah.
The quarterback gets hit and he throws kind of a lame duck that just happens to land right in Gibbs' hands, and he jumps over a guy and, runs it in. But I think definitely UL Monroe will definitely pose a tougher test for this week.
I think Georgia State was a good setup to play ULM, though, because the styles are more similar. I mean, ULM is a team that's going to throw the ball a lot, so App State kind of got to see that. And I think that's, beating down Georgia State like they did will be good momentum going into that game and knowing that they can defend the pass well.
Yeah, well, and I was happy to see on the other side of the ball, see them throwing it more. I know that last week I lamented a little bit about I was worried about our pass game, and I mean, he threw for,
almost 300
yards. Yeah, almost 300.
291, I believe.
Yeah.
Actually, statistically adjusted 300 plus now.
Oh,
Very nice.
All right.
Very nice.
Yeah. There was a jet sweep that was ruled a run and was actually a forward pass. The passing total over 300 yards there for Taylor Lamb. He took deep shots too, and that was the cool thing
nice
to see. Malachi Jones had a great game in a venue that he'd had some success in before. Taylor Lamb had some success there in some state championship games. So those two getting hooked up could be a big part of what you're talking about.
Well, it was great to see Malachi go back to that kind of what we were used to seeing a year or two ago. It was nice to see him go back to where I was used to seeing him and saying, like, okay, he's getting down the field. He knows, this is the kind of football I've been waiting to see. So it was nice.
Well, it's no fault of Malachi's. We just don't throw the ball a terrible, amount. And playing in the Georgia Dome was a good opportunity to throw the ball. Because you don't have weather, you don't have elements, to worry about. But I think it's somewhat kind of a shame. I mean, I'm glad we have several talented wide receivers at our disposal. Jones, Metters, among others. But a lot of those guys don't get the ball thrown to them as much as I'm sure they would like to.
Yeah, with the limited passing game, it's hard to get when only you're getting 1 or 2 passes a game. How much numbers you really get.
But you can't blame anyone for not drawing up passes when you're running for 300 plus.
Oh, not at all.
I was going to say that type of stuff only really matters if you're losing games. I think
exactly.
As long as you're winning and
tight end's got 4 catches this week.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that too. But as long as you're winning, I think players care a lot less about how many individual targets they're getting and things like that. It's just, this offense is clicking, and and they kind of just ride wherever the momentum is taking them at the
Which
time.
is nice. I mean, they're not seeing the divas that I think other
Yeah, I
schools
think-
have been dealing with. Everyone's kind of like, I'll get the ball, do what I can when I get it, we'll move on.
Well, speaking of D, we'll take the Eva part off of that for a second. But from a defensive standpoint, could you make the case that this team's identity is more about defense? Because right now you're looking at a team that's ranked among the top 5 in the country in scoring defense, total defense, rushing defense, only 11.3 points a game they're allowing right now. And I think also you're to a point almost at the midway point of the season now where you're past this just being a trend to start the year. This is kind of what they do, and that's being stingy in the red zone once again and limiting teams the opportunity for the big play. That seems to be the difference maker this year.
No, defense is definitely a huge thing. And I mean, the 11.3 is kind of a funny statistic when you add Clemson in there because it's use my math terms, outlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, you take away that one out, all
Every
of a
other
sudden,
team has scored a combined 19 or 16 points.
And,
it has scored on them this year.
And I was looking at the breakdown earlier. App State, consider, versus Clemson, they gave up, 28 points in the second quarter?
Yeah.
App State has given up less than 10 points in every other quarter this entire season. So you add in that, and I think they've given up 30 or 48 in the second quarter. So you add in that Clemson game, and then you look at it, and it's that much more impressive. If you were to take that out, I mean, oh my gosh, it'd be like 6 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, going all the way back to last season, it wasn't until the defense kind of got their act together, and that kind of started that trend of we're winning ball games, and that's carried on, over until this season. But I think the defense is probably the bigger factor here because in my opinion, you have to have a good defense if you're going to win anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to win ball games if you're trying to outscore the other team, every single game.
Yeah.
And that's something that Georgia State, has been struggling with, this year because I know they only, put 3 on the board against, us, but in other games this season, they were able to score the ball.
On
but
Oregon. They hung
Oregon,
even
28 plus 28.
Yeah, 28 on Oregon, but the defense was a screen door. So.
Interesting statistic to close this up. The Appalachian State defense has scored as many touchdowns in the last 3 games, actually one more touchdown in the last 3 games than their opponents have. Total.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's that.
Latrell
Gibbs.
Latrell Gibbs has scored more.
Gibbs, the Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Week again. So congratulations to him. Quick hit on volleyball. Appalachian squad again another sweep this past weekend. They are right neck and neck with Arkansas State atop the Sun Belt, and Arkansas State's a ranked team at this point in time. But you're looking at fall sports domination once again. Men's soccer had a win this week. Field hockey got 2 wins this week. So the trend continues. Winning begets winning. And that seems to be running, especially right through that volleyball team, unbeaten in league play right now.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's actually 10 straight for them, 10 straight victories, something like that. I mean, that's a nice streak to be put together.
13-4 overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have a ranked team like Arkansas State, that's easy to say, like, that's the team that we got to beat, you know what I mean? But it's nice to see them get these wins and streak them together going into the rest of the season.
Yeah, and us beating Little Rock, I mean, I understand, I guess the Little Rock of this season is not the same Little Rock of last season, but that's a program that went undefeated in conference play last year. So
won an NCAA tournament.
Exactly. So for us to handle them in 4 sets and then beat UT Arlington, I told someone earlier today that I feel like UT Arlington kind of lost that game when they woke up that morning because they didn't really show up. But we took care of business, and hopefully maybe we can leapfrog Arkansas State and get some votes in the polls and maybe squeak into the top 25. That'd be really cool for a volleyball program. It seems to be on the rise.
Yeah, not too far away from that for sure. As we get back into college football, we'll take it more on a broad scale. Kind of an interesting story that developed earlier today involving Florida. And, we've talked about the revolving door that has been the SEC East. And here's Florida's opportunity to sit on top of the throne. And now their quarterback, ineligible perhaps. There's an appeal going on. But, what's life like for the Gators without Greer?
It's got to be really tough because no one expected them to be where they're at anyway, and now they've climbed into the top 10 as teams have kind of gotten knocked off through here and there, and so now they're in the top 10, and then you lose your quarterback. It just has got to feel awful, and you've got to be let down if you're any member on that team besides the quarterback. I would be so disappointed in him because, I mean, without him, I don't think they stay at top.
Now, it's a controversial thing, though. I mean, because it's an over-the-counter NCAA banned substance. So, there's a rule there.
Yeah.
But I guess at what point in time do you say that list needs to either be expanded or to cover some of these things that are over the counter and supplements? And it was a supplement, not a medical thing. Yeah. But or is this that whole, hey, the line is right here, you cross the line, you're done, end of story?
I'm more of the line is here, you cross it, you're done. Like, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of wiggle room in sports at all for things like this. So I'm much more along the lines of, you should have known it. Someone should have said, no, this is an issue. And that should have been the end of it, as opposed to this, well, is it really a problem? Like, no, he was told no, he did it anyway. I don't know, to me, end of story.
Yeah. And you matter so much to that program that if there's any doubt in your mind, I just wouldn't do anything
you should
like
be asking
that.
somebody.
And if I'm a Florida State fan or I'm a student or an alum, I'm just really sick to my stomach right now because it had been a little while before they were kind of trying to get back to that prominence.
Yeah.
And maybe you thought with Greer maybe they could. So I'm not exactly sure where this leaves them for the rest of their season.
It'll be interesting to see now what becomes the next SEC team to step up, because this has been the revolving door. Georgia obviously is not going to be that team for any time soon without Chubb going down. So who is next? I mean, if you're going to see Florida fall off because they're without their quarterback now, what team stands to gain from Florida knocking off? Could it still be Georgia? It's not going to be South Carolina.
I was going to say, who it's not going to be.
Missouri?
I don't believe in Missouri. I think Kentucky has a chance to be a dark horse more so than Missouri. I just I watched them play UConn and then they go and they lose to Kentucky. I don't think they're a very good team. And Mock is he even still starting for them? I think he had some issues.
I don't know.
It's been off and on.
Yeah, I watched the UConn game. And that was terrible. That was some of the worst
Why'd
football
you watch that game?
Yeah, exactly. It was on.
That was some of the worst football I've seen. But even though Florida did lose their quarterback, they still have a terrific defense.
Definitely.
And with that division still really wide open, they still might. I don't even know who their backup is, but if that guy can just be a game manager, maybe they can run the ball and just continue playing excellent defense. Why not?
Yes.
Could they win the SEC East?
If somebody can get the ball off quick and get it to the right guys just enough, you might be able to hold on a little bit until they can figure out what the heck is going on. So
you look at Charlie Strong, an opportunity for him to maybe solidify further job security. If you're going to win a game, might as well beat your rival, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to do it after giving up 70 or whatever it was to TCU.
And Oklahoma, who's they were top, or they were number 10. So I mean that's a big
Not
win.
anymore.
Well, not anymore. They're going to fall a long way, but good for Charlie Strong, because I think we talked about last week. I think he's a product of circumstance. I think it's much more about what is going on with the program in general than it is about him. I know we did talk about players and their halftime stuff, and that has to be taken care of absolutely.
Apparently, no Twitter means
apparently. But I think that he's a very good coach, and the players. It takes some time to buy into what he's doing, but I think they're starting to do that. And I mean, to be such a loser for the past few years like Texas has been, I mean, winning is something that's mental first, and they're just now getting into that. I mean, it's nothing to beat easy teams early in the beginning of your schedule. But a win like that, you don't just go out there and perform. You have to will that victory like that.
Yeah, and did you see the excitement and just the overall celebration after that win? Now I know you just beat a top 10 team, and it was Oklahoma, and that game means a lot. Charlie Strong had been suffering or whatever, but I was just thinking to myself, watching them celebrate like that is somewhat a product of where the Texas program is right now.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Because you would not see a Texas program of 10 years ago celebrate in that fashion. I mean, the only way they celebrate in that fashion is if they win the national championship. I think that was a good representation of where the program is, and hopefully, I believe in Charlie Strong. If he can just maybe, like you say, get his players under control and get their head straight.
And pressure doesn't lie with just the coaches either. I mean, those kids who have all been recruited from those areas are sitting there thinking, man, we've got to get this done, especially against Oklahoma in a game that means everything in that part of the country. So it's good to see them get that done. Switching over to the NFL here, we'll get into picks here in a little bit, but overall, start in the NFC South with the Falcons. Here's a team that everybody wants to fall in love with, but they win the game the same way all the time, it seems like. Get in a hole, come back, dramatic finish, there's your ball game. Can't get much more dramatic than a walk-off pick six in overtime.
Yeah, I will say, I think Matt Ryan has been uncharacteristically unclutch this year. Like typically in the past, they've been able to rely on him to bring them, to
AKA
the end.
Natty Ice.
And really, exactly. But I think it's been strange because this year it's really been their defense, and I think that's a big testament to Dan Quinn. I mean, I will say, pulling out a win over Washington in overtime does not impress me, but 5-0 impresses me. So if you can just keep figuring it out, I mean, there are plenty of teams that would love to be where the Falcons are.
I mean, a win is a win is a win, and particularly in the NFL, there isn't any easy wins.
Yeah.
So I'm a Falcons believer. I mean, I'm a Panthers fan, but I think the Falcons are for real. And if you can win those ugly games when nothing is kind of going your way, even against a bad team, and you still find a way to win, I think they have a real chance, particularly in this division where, I want my Panthers to be tops in the NFC, but I still don't know what I have as a Panthers fan. Exactly. So I think this week, going to Seattle will prove to be a test and maybe see where that.
But is it as much of a test though? Because Seattle doesn't look like Seattle either.
Seattle
I think from a matchup perspective, you could claim that the Panthers have some advantages here. When you look at what Seattle hasn't done well and what Carolina could potentially do well, from an offense-defense perspective, I don't know that Seattle is as daunting as maybe this game looked at the beginning of the season, where I think people saw a Panther team that could run off 4 and then just as quickly lose 4 and be even after the first 8.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The Seahawks have been a little disappointing to me as a team in general, just because I'm all about the defense, especially in NFL. So it's always good to be like, that Seahawks defense and all this stuff. And I feel like they're not living up to what I was hoping they were going to be. And I think that people are getting frustrated with that. But it's also other teams are now looking at them and going, hey, okay, now we can do something. We can work with what they're giving us, as opposed to, I think, last year and 2 years ago, it was kind of like, oh man, if we can do anything with this defense at us, we'll be happy that we just put up some points. So,
I don't understand why Seattle. Why do you acquire a guy like Jimmy Graham? And then not use him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not old. He's 28 years old.
Yeah. It's questionable that he even fit their system in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think their struggles are the fact that they can't run the ball, which is what they were built to do. So you trade away Max Unger, who's your center, to get Jimmy Graham, who you're not using. You also lose James Carpenter to go to the Jets, who's helping their run game, and now Ivory is putting up numbers that Marshawn Lynch used to do. Not to say that it's completely Carpenter, but you lost 2 main pieces to your offense. And Russell Wilson does not function well without the ability to have a run game.
Yeah.
And that's what's showing, is they're getting exposed, I think, through that, is that teams are like, hey, we can shut down the run. Marshawn Lynch hasn't been healthy. Fred Jackson isn't doing much. Rawls had a big game.
Fred Jackson's like 412.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. We won't dog Fred Jackson.
I mean, you mentioned Rawls. I had him on my fantasy team.
Did you? Well,
I was happy about that. But you're right. And I don't think it's a lack of talent in the backfield, because even though Fred Jackson is old, he can still catch the ball. And Rawls put up 163 yards, I think, 3 touchdowns or 2 or something of that effect. So, it's an offensive line issue right now for them. And you mentioned Russell Wilson. You're right. He can't be a slinging it down the field kind of quarterback. He has to be a game manager and do a little more than that. So if they don't get it turned around, then you possibly, might see a situation in Seattle, kind of like you have in San Francisco, where, we don't have the same defense anymore. We can't run the ball. Now look, this quarterback we thought was all this maybe isn't quite as good, but now So
get rid of their coach, and they may be the 49ers all over again.
So I don't know. We'll see where that leaves them.
Hey, one last NFL topic: the Colts.
Yes.
You got extra days to bask in this glory.
Oh, it was a stressful game. I was listening to it on the radio and also watching it at the same time and freaking out the entire time. But Hasselbeck, he got it done. That's what mattered. We need the 10 days to get Luck healthy. He went full practice today, so they're not saying Pagano's come out and said, we're not going to say he's coming out. We're not saying he's playing, but he has to play, or I'm going to go find him and make him play, because at this point.
It's interesting that Andre Johnson all of a sudden. I will say, I think part of that was playing against his old team, but at the same time, I mean, Luck just has not gone to Andre Johnson this year, and I have him in fantasy. It's really frustrating because I thought he was going to be the steal. I was like, oh, he's going to get 12 touchdowns this year. Yeah. He's got almost nothing, but it was good to see them go to him, because I think he showed he can still be a part of that offense. Mostly Luck has been deferring to Moncrief. So
and Moncrief's numbers were not what they have been with Luck the last couple of games. So I mean, I was glad to see that we were going to some different people, and I think Luck is learning, watching on the sidelines. I think that he's seeing, he's getting, Hasselbeck's getting the ball off faster, he's going to different guys. I think Luck is kind of looking at it and seeing as, here's where I can improve my game, and it's cool to see him possibly learning from a guy who, is about 18 million years old, it feels like sometimes.
Could be Luck's dad.
Yeah, about
really
so.
Could.
But it's nice to see that I think that he has something to learn and not just the franchise quarterback who.
Yeah. He and Fred Jackson graduated high school together. Right?
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Yeah, well, Hasselbeck, certainly he's earned his keep as the backup because no one expects you, especially playing behind Andrew Luck, to have to play at all. Getting 2 wins, I hope that guy has an ice bath and, just kind of hangs it up for the rest of the season.
Well,
He's like, all right, guys.
Being in the ER the day before the game with like 103 fever and all sorts of stuff.
Players must play.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, switching now into the NBA, speaking of players must play, the Charlotte Hornets having to go without their top weapon. Found a way, at least in exhibition play, to kind of make this a workable deal here without getting too big into lineup combinations here. The Jeremy Lin experience has been a positive one thus far. It seems like he's scoring the ball at maybe an elevated clip. What do you make of the Hornets' revamped look without the big man in the middle?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of early to really buy into the Hornets, but I do like a lot of their offseason additions. I will say that. I really liked when they picked up Nicholas Batum. I think he'll probably be the guy who surprises most Hornets fans this year as someone that they were kind of like, well, who is that? Because he's flown under the radar in Portland. He's never had to be like a big producer, and I think his shooting ability is far underrated and something that they needed. So.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. Batum, is an underrated guy who, playing the small forward position or the power forward position will offer more scoring than possibly we would have gotten, from that role otherwise. It certainly hurts, to have lost, MKG. Even though his jump shot. Watching that is just a horror.
But he's not there for that though. He's a great
exactly.
And
he defends, he rebounds, but certainly hurts to lose him. I think the addition of Lin, I'm not sure how much he'll actually participate or contribute once the season actually gets going, because I don't put a whole lot of stock in preseason.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how hard guys are playing. Sometimes you're playing kind of the weak sisters of the poor.
Or another NBA team.
Yeah, honestly,
one or the other. I don't know.
I probably don't see Charlotte making the playoffs this year. I have hopes, but
not high ones apparently.
Well,
KG though, you're right.
Yeah, I would like for them. I think they would be doing pretty well if they can get like the 8th seed. I probably see them as being maybe the 10th best team in that conference.
All right, we promised controversy, so let's talk about the slide a little bit here. Tejada versus Utley. Dirty play, not dirty play. We'll take that angle first. What do you think?
I say dirty play. And there's been a lot of discussion on, that's been what he's been taught to do, and he's been taught to do whatever he can, but you're the runner. You're sliding. He clearly went down for the slide about 2 feet before the bag. And he slid out. It wasn't... Anyone who knows how to play baseball or has played softball or anything in that realm understands the way to slide. You're taught that from day one almost, little league level. And you don't slide sideways 3 feet behind the bag at the guy who's catching the ball. No matter what you're trying to do, stop the double play or whatever, you don't do it.
I guess I'm kind of along the lines that I think it's really hard to look at a replay and say that was his intent, was to knowingly injure somebody. I think it's one of those things, and especially when you consider that it's in the playoffs, these guys are giving it everything to try to go out there and get a win. And so if you go for a slide like that, during the regular season, if I see something like that, okay, I'm like, come on, dude, it's the regular season. There's hundreds of these. Come on, But in the playoffs, you're fighting for survival, and everybody wants to get to the World Series, and I can't fault the guy for going all out.
Yeah. Oh, getting in the way. The thing is, it's getting in the way versus, I don't think intentional injury was the issue.
Well, and the thing, too, though, is you've got to consider Utley's past. Utley is not a guy. There are baseball players who continually are in the news for doing crap like that, and they're known instigators and things like that. Utley has had a pretty clean track record in his career, and I think that plays into it, too. You have to kind of consider that, because if he was doing it this time, he's probably done it before.
Yeah. Well, I think if this guy doesn't get hurt, if he doesn't break his leg,
it would have been
especially
so much
since
less.
it's playoff baseball, I don't even think it's an issue at all. I think the announcers say, yeah, that's some good hard baseball Utley's playing out there. You know, it's the playoffs. You got to win.
Don Mattingly basically said that. He said you're punishing the consequence and not the actual crime. And you know, the other point to what you were talking about, though, is if you play the game, you also know how to slide in that situation. There is a difference between taking someone out, which anybody that's ever played's done, but when you're a middle infielder and you slide that high up the body, that was the part to me that looked more like intent, because he went so hard, so high, so late. And that part looked like it was clearly more than knocking somebody off their feet.
That was kind of my thing. But going back to the injury kind of deal, I did find it interesting. I watched several replays with different commentators and stuff today to kind of see, okay, what are they saying about it? And it's interesting because, all they're saying is, oh, that's some good hard baseball. You know, he's doing what he needs to do until they bring the card out. And then all of a sudden it's, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, look what he did. Like, it gets negative real quick when an injury came up. So I will say that it definitely would have been a lot less should it have been even just a sprained ankle or something.
Wrapping up the show here real quick, we've got Monday night picks. You guys have caught up, and we'll throw the leaderboard up here.
It's starting to feel nice.
I just want
we got a little bit of help from the refs the other week, but
oh man, I was so. Anyway, so 3-2 all the way across picks.
You know, I don't think Pittsburgh without Ben Roethlisberger is going to do a whole lot tonight offensively. So I got to go San Diego. I think that offense is far superior, and I'm not sure how good the Steelers defense is.
Yeah, I'm going San Diego as well. I think when I heard that Pittsburgh didn't have Martavis Bryant for this game, he was supposed to be back finally off the suspension, but it's looking like they're going to hold him. I thought that was somebody who Vic would work well with, being able to throw the bomb to him because he's been unstoppable deep. Not going to have that. They're going to play underneath. So
I hate to go with what we usually do, but I'm going to pull Chargers too. I'm kind of in the same boat, but I like to doubt Vic just in general. So
Vic hater. All right.
I am a Vic hater. I will
dog lover and Vic hater.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. So I got to go against
Oh, here we go.
All right, I'm closing it out. I'm going Steelers.
Of
Why?
course.
Just because. No other reason, really.
Despite us.
And they'll win 28-7.
Exactly.
Just because
so.
David picks them.
That'll do it for this edition of Sports Bar. As always, we invite you to send your comments along to watchapptv.com. Until next time, I'm David Jackson. So long, everybody.